What do you do when the giant in front of you feels impossible to defeat? Well, we have all stood in that place, a valley of decision where our courage is tested and our strength seems to fade. Before us looms a challenge so immense, so overwhelming, that it casts a long, dark shadow over everything we hold dear. This giant might have a name we know all too well: fear, uncertainty, grief, an obstacle that seems to have no path around it. It speaks in a voice that echoes in our minds, telling us we are too small, too weak, and too ill-equipped to ever find victory. This is a universal human experience, a moment where the sheer size of our problem threatens to paralyze us completely, leaving us frozen at the bottom of the hill, staring up at a battle we feel we have already lost. In these moments, our hearts are filled with a chilling question: where do we turn when our own power is not enough? The world offers many answers. It tells us to be stronger, to be smarter, to fight harder with the tools we can see and touch. It advises us to rely on our own wit, our own resources, our own resilience. But sometimes the giant is simply too large for any human strategy to conquer. It stands defiant against our best efforts, mocking our attempts to overcome it through sheer force of will. This is the place where fear takes root, growing in the soil of our doubt and whispering that we are utterly alone in our struggle. It's a profound and lonely feeling, standing in the shadow of something that feels so much bigger than ourselves. But what if there is another way? What if, in that valley of fear, there is a different kind of strength available to us? A strength that does not depend on our own might, but on a power infinitely greater. This is the timeless battle between fear and faith. Fear looks at the size of the giant and says, "It is impossible." It counts the enemy's swords, shields, measures the height of the obstacle, and concludes that defeat is certain. Fear focuses on the visible, the tangible, the terrifying reality that stands right before our eyes. It binds our hands and convinces our hearts that there is no hope, no way forward, and no chance of ever seeing the sun from behind the giant's formidable shadow. Faith, however, sees something entirely different. It looks past the giant and sees the God who stands behind us. It is a quiet, steady confidence that does not deny the existence of the challenge, but denies its ultimate power over us. Faith is not the absence of fear, but the decision to trust even when we are afraid. It is the deep and abiding belief that the one who created the mountains is greater than any mountain we could ever face. Today, we will walk through an ancient story that speaks directly to this struggle. It is the story of a young shepherd, a fearsome giant, and a faith that proved to be bigger and more powerful than any fear. A story that reminds us that our giant is never, ever bigger than our God. The sun beat down upon the valley of Elah, a wide expanse of earth and stone, a silent stage for a great and terrible standoff. On one side, nestled among the hills, the army of Israel, soldiers, sons, fathers, banners fluttering nervously. Across the valley, on the opposing ridge, the Philistine army had gathered. Between them lay the quiet brook. For 40 days, these two armies had faced each other, locked in a stalemate born of pride and fear, waiting for a champion. Each morning the stillness was broken. It began as a low rumble, the crunch of heavy boots on gravel, an earth-shaking tread. Out from the Philistine camp emerged a figure of breathtaking size. His name was Goliath, from the city of Gath, a giant in every sense. He stood over 9 feet tall, a mountain of muscle and menace. He was not just a soldier, he was a walking declaration of war. The soldiers of Israel watched from their hillside, their hearts pounding. They were men who had known battle, had fought for their king, had fought for their God. Yet the sight of Goliath drained their courage. He was unlike any foe they had ever faced. Not just a man, but a living embodiment of their deepest fears. They looked at his size, at his armor, at his spear, and saw only defeat. The giant in the valley became the giant in their minds. His shadow fell over the heart of every soldier in the camp of Israel. When Goliath reached the center of the valley, he would stop, plant his great spear into the earth, and let out a roar that echoed from the hillsides. "Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul?" He was belittling an entire nation, reducing their king to a mere master, and their soldiers to nothing more than slaves. "Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. If I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us. This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight." The ritual repeated without fail, every morning, every evening. For 40 long days the challenge was issued. For 40 long days, it was met with deafening silence. The giant's words hung in the air, poisoning the morale. With each passing day, the fear grew deeper, the shame more acute. The soldiers of Israel were trapped in a cycle of terror and humiliation. The effect on the Israelite army was devastating. When King Saul and all his men heard the words of Goliath, they were dismayed. They were terrified. Men trained for war, pledged to defend their kingdom, found themselves utterly frozen. No one stepped forward. Soldiers looked to each other, eyes filled with the same terror. But no one moved. Swords stayed sheathed, spears stayed planted, courage buried under fear. Even King Saul was powerless. He was tall, formidable, head and shoulders above others. In any other fight, he'd be the champion. But he too was paralyzed. Fear reigned in the valley of Elah. It whispered lies. "You are inadequate. God has abandoned you." The army became isolated individuals, trapped in private terror. The Philistine giant had won without swinging a spear. He conquered their courage, captured their minds, and brought a kingdom to its knees, not with a sword, but with the simple, powerful, and soul-crushing weapon of fear. Far from the valley of fear, in the quiet, sun-drenched fields near Bethlehem, life continued its peaceful rhythm. It was here, among the gentle hills, that a young man named David was living out his days. He was the youngest of 3 sons of Jesse. His role was one of humble service, a shepherd. His hands were accustomed not to the grip of a sword, but the smooth wood of a shepherd's staff, and the worn leather of a simple sling. He was a youth, full of life, music, attuned to the subtle language of the wilderness and the silent majesty of God. Insignificant by all worldly measures. One day, his father Jesse called him from the fields. His 3 older brothers had followed King Saul to the war, and Jesse's heart was filled with a father's concern. He gave David a simple but important task. "Take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread," he instructed, "and take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. See how your brothers are, and bring back some assurance from them." So David rose early the next morning, leaving the sheep with another shepherd, and set off on his journey. He was not going as a soldier, but as a son and a brother, carrying food, not weapons. As he traveled, the landscape began to change. The peaceful, rolling hills of Bethlehem slowly gave way to the more rugged, intense terrain surrounding the military encampment. David arrived at the camp just as the soldiers were moving out to their battle positions on the ridge, shouting their war cries, a daily ritual that had become more of a hollow tradition. He found his brothers in the ranks, delivering the food and greetings from their father. He was in the middle of his conversation when the familiar, dreadful routine began once again. The armies took their positions. The valley fell into a tense hush, and then, from the Philistine side, the giant emerged. For the first time, David, the shepherd boy from Bethlehem, laid his eyes upon the man who held the entire nation of Israel hostage with fear. But what David saw, and what he felt, was entirely different from everyone else. As Goliath stepped forward and issued his defiant, blasphemous challenge, David listened with an intensity that the other soldiers, numbed by 40 days of fear, could no longer muster. He heard the same words, "I defy the armies of Israel this day." But David's ears did not just register the threat, they registered the deep spiritual offense. A wave of righteous indignation rose within him.
What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?
This was the heart of the matter. For David, this was not a battle between the Philistine army and the Israelite army. It was a confrontation between a pagan, an outsider to God's covenant, and the sacred armies of the one true living God. Everyone else saw a 9-foot-tall problem. David saw a mere mortal who had the audacity to mock the God of heaven. His perspective was not horizontal, man against man, but vertical, man against God. This perspective changed everything. David was indignant because he was looking at it from a divine point of view. He did not see an unbeatable giant. He saw a loud-mouthed blasphemer who had foolishly picked a fight with the creator of the universe. David's words did not go unnoticed. Eliab overheard the young shepherd's pointed questions. Eliab's reaction, anger and suspicion.
"Why have you come down here?" he snapped. "And with whom did you leave those few sheep? I know how conceited you are. You came down only to watch the battle."
This was the first test of David's resolve. "Now what have I done?" he asked. "Can I even speak?" He did not argue at length. He brushed off the attack and stayed focused on the issue.
He turned away from Eliab and joined another group of soldiers. He asked them the same question about the giant. He refused to let cynicism extinguish his fire of faith. His quiet persistence, his refusal to be intimidated, began to stir the camp. The strange, fearless shepherd's words spread from man to man. They heard a voice not heard in over a month. A voice not of fear but of faith. The whispers about the young shepherd with the fearless words finally reached the ears of King Saul. Saul, desperate for a glimmer of hope, ordered David brought before him. "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine," he declared. "Your servant will go and fight him." Saul saw only a shepherd boy. "You are not able to go out against this Philistine," he replied. "You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." David did not argue his youth. He shared his resume of lived experience. "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. A lion came and carried off a sheep. A bear came and carried off a sheep. I went after it. I struck it. I rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair. I struck it. I killed it. Your servant has killed the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them." David saw a pattern: the lion, the bear, and Goliath as a public threat to God's flock. "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." King Saul listened, and it stirred something within him. "Go," Saul said, his voice heavy with resignation, "and the Lord be with you." Having given his reluctant blessing, King Saul immediately reverted to the only strategy he knew. He took off his own royal armor and began to dress David in it. David stood there, encased in the king's heavy, unfamiliar armor. The bronze helmet was likely too big. The coat of mail was a crushing weight. He tried to walk, but he was clumsy and restricted. "I cannot go in these," he said to Saul. "I am not used to them." With quiet determination, he began to remove the king's armor. He was rejecting the world's best solution to the problem. He was refusing to fight the battle on anyone's terms but his own and God's. Once he had shed the suffocating weight of Saul's armor, David turned to what he knew. His hands reached for the familiar comfort of his own staff. Then he walked down into the valley of Elah. He made his way to the brook that separated the two armies. He carefully chose 5 smooth stones from the stream bed, feeling their weight and balance in his hand. He placed the 5 stones into his shepherd's bag. His final weapon was the one he knew better than any sword or spear: his sling. So David stood, ready to face the giant. He had no helmet, no armor, no sword. But David was not armed with the tools of war. He was armed with the tools of faith. He was choosing to fight with what he knew, and to trust in the God who had always been with him. With his staff in hand and his sling at the ready, David began to walk across the valley floor. Every eye was upon him. As David drew nearer, Goliath caught sight of his challenger. He saw not a warrior, not a champion, but a boy. The sight was so insulting that Goliath let out a great booming laugh. "Am I a dog?" Goliath bellowed, "that you come at me with sticks?" He cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he taunted, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." David stood before the torrent of curses and threats, yet he did not flinch, he did not tremble. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. I'll strike you down and cut off your head, and I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals. Then the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." With his declaration of faith still echoing across the valley, David did not wait. He ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. As he ran, his hands moved with a familiar, practiced grace. He reached into his shepherd's bag and took out one of the 5 smooth stones. He began to whirl the sling above his head. Faster and faster it went, a blur of leather and motion, the air whistling as the sling gathered momentum. Then, with a final powerful whip of his arm, David released one side of the sling. The stone shot forth, a small, dark projectile flying through the air with incredible speed and precision. It sailed across the space, separating the boy from the giant, a tiny messenger of God's power against the towering fortress of human pride. It was the stone of faith, the stone of trust, the stone of destiny, and it was about to find its mark. The smooth stone struck Goliath with a sickening thud. It hit him squarely on the forehead, precisely where David had aimed and where God had guided. In that instant, the giant's arrogant expression vanished, replaced by a look of stunned surprise. The strength drained from his massive limbs. With a ground-shaking crash and a cloud of dust, the giant fell. He fell face down, a posture of complete and utter defeat. The impossible had happened. The giant was dead. David ran and stood over him. With no sword of his own, he drew Goliath's massive sword from its sheath. He cut off his head, final undeniable proof that the champion of the Philistines was defeated. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and fled. A great roar erupted from the Israelite army, not fear, but triumphant victory. They rose and charged, pursuing them for miles, securing a total and decisive victory. The battle was won, not by the strength of an army or the armor of a king, but by the faith of a shepherd boy who knew his God was always bigger than any giant. The story of David and Goliath is more than just an ancient tale. It is a story that echoes through time and speaks directly to the heart of our own human experience. We all have giants in our lives. Your giant might have a name. Perhaps its name is fear, a constant anxiety that paralyzes you. Or maybe your giant is doubt, a cynical voice that questions your worth, your abilities, and the very faithfulness of God Himself. Your giant might be the pain of a past you cannot escape, a sickness in your body, or an impossible situation at work or in the family. Like the army of Israel, we can find ourselves dismayed and terrified. The world, much like King Saul, will offer you its armor. It will tell you to rely on your own strength, to hustle harder, to be smarter. But this borrowed armor can feel heavy and ill-fitting. But David's story invites us to adopt a different perspective. It encourages us to look past the terrifying size of our giant and to ask a more important question: who is this giant that it should defy the armies of the living God? The first step to victory is not to get stronger, but to see God as bigger. It is to shift our gaze from the intimidating giant in front of us to the all-powerful God who stands behind us. David's victory was not born in the valley of Elah. It was forged in the lonely pastures of Bethlehem. His confidence came from his history with God. He remembered the lion. He remembered the bear. Your faith for the giant you face today is built upon your remembrance of God's faithfulness in the battles of your yesterday. Each of those memories is a stone in your shepherd's bag. Furthermore, David fought with the weapons he had, not the weapons he was told he needed. Do not despise the sling that God has placed in your hands. Your victory will come from faithfully using the gifts that God has entrusted to you. The battle truly belongs to the Lord. David's powerful declaration, "I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty," is our declaration as well. When we face our giants, we do not go in our own strength. Your giant is never bigger than your God. The fear, the pain, the doubt, the impossible situation, none of it is a match for the limitless power and unfailing love of the Lord Almighty. As we close this story, let its truth settle deep within your spirit. Remember that the same God who gave David victory over Goliath is with you now, ready to fight on your behalf. All he asks is that you trust him. Let your faith rise up and silence the voice of fear. Look at your giant and declare that it stands on defeated ground, because you do not come in your own power, but in the mighty name of the Lord. If this message touched your heart, subscribe to Walking in Faith.